couple more times. That's what I was talking about. Okay, so I think I figured out the problem with the hesitation, not so much the bog in this engine. Chevy 350, VIN code M, it's the heavy duty engine, so I guess it's got the low compression heads on there, albeit it's pretty much the same. It's a 350, just, you know, a couple of different small things that, mind you, topside, it's all the same. Maybe the carburetor's a little bit different tuned, or maybe it's a different carburetor altogether. Not totally sure in any case, but the problem was that it has hesitation and bog, well, those are kind of one and the same. If you think about it, you know, verbiage there, definition, I think there's two different things. Hesitation is just kind of stumble upon acceleration, where bog is more or less like you're already accelerating and losing power. Well, this seemed to be almost intermittent. It kind of went from hesitation to bog by my definition. In any case, that didn't reveal itself until when I started really messing with this thing and trying to figure out the problem. I went back over a bunch of things I did. I did replace all the plug wires, the coil, the module, the ignition module, all up in there. I did rebuild this carburetor with help from allies on the YouTube. And I did a bunch of other things. I replaced the fuel pump. That was real bad off. It didn't seem to operate correctly. Once I pulled it off there's a mechanism in there that just didn't seem to move correctly. Just made sure that all my connections were correct. Like, this seemed to have, you know, very, very bad connection. Doesn't seem to be, you know, all the pieces, all the plastic, you know, clip pieces they seem to not be there. So I went ahead and put a whole bunch of dielectric grease, which you can see that kind of glimmering in the light there. I came back and made sure that none of these wires were touching the headers, because you know, I figured there might have been an abrasion on there, and or maybe a hot spot that got worn through, maybe it was arcing across there. I fixed this wire. It was kind of all the insulator came off of there, and you could see the wires exposed all the way back to from here to here. So I, you know, went and cut that back and, you know, straightened all that out. Let's see, new plug wires, new plugs, new coil, new module, cleaned up the springs and weights on the distributor underneath the rotor. It's got a new rotor and cap on there, or at least newer. So I did all that. I think I did a couple other things to tidy this thing up, but what I think really pegged this from the get-go, what I really think the problem was, is actually underneath this cap. I think it's been this problem the entire time, is that there's a bad connection in there. Oh, don't tell me I'm gonna have to get a different tool. Let's see if I can do this. So the spade terminals seem to be not connecting properly, and I'll show you if this fits. No, it doesn't, does it? Oh man, we'll get a different tool. In any case, yeah, so the spade terminals, they seem to be not connecting properly. If I can make this click here. What else did I do to this thing? Check the gas, change the gas from regular octane to premium, change the timing all around. I mean, I did pretty much everything. I even capped off or tightened down the gas cap real tight to make sure that that wasn't an issue, as if that could even potentially be remotely close to being an issue. Checked all of my vacuum ports, and everything else seemed to check out. You know, checked my compression. Compression was the same all across the board. Really low, but it was still all the same across the board. It was right between 85 and 95, and not more than, 5 psi or whatever off from the next one, the one next to it anyway. So this is what I found, is that, of course, under that cap is your coil for the h.e.i. But what I found is I have these terminals here, and these terminals, one leads, this one here, this wire set leads down to the coil, or the the ignition module, which is right down there, that wire set leads down to the ignition module, and this wire set, I'll pull a clip off there real quick. This wire set comes from the wiring harness. Pretty sure this is, you know, your power in and ground or whatever. I could be wrong, I don't care. But the explanation is what is important here. So this clips up inside there, and as you can see, there's the two prongs up front there. There's one on the top and one on the bottom. But watch what happens when I actually put this thing back in here. Alright, if you watch those terminals right there up front, the two that I just pointed out, if you can focus, you stupid, there you go, watch, they're raising up there, completely raised up like that. And so what's happening is the actual terminals down inside the connector are actually pushing that up, because these aren't pinned in hard enough. And that's because it's just cheap material. I actually had to buy the cap separate from the actual coil, and so that it doesn't, you know, it doesn't bind well together. And so what I got to do is I actually got to use force on the top and bottom, holding that plug in down there. At the same time, I'm pushing down on these to actually get this thing to fully connect. And that, if done enough times, if you pull it out and push it back in, like, you know, you would do if you were checking to make sure your cap's not messed up, like your you know, your gaps, your contacts, I don't know what they're called, but where the arc jumps across there. If you're checking that on a constant, you know, seeing if that's a problem, you know, you're gonna unplug this stuff all the time. You're gonna unplug these two wires all the time, or whatever. If you're just taking it apart, look at the springs and weights, whatever. You're unplugging that all the time, and then so you plug it in, you plug it, you know, unplug it, plug it in, unplug it, and you plug it in, and that's going to actually cause that thing to raise up so much that it's actually barely touching. You know, you got a little microscopic spot where it's just barely touching, and so that's where you're going to get your hesitation from, is because you're not actually getting a good connection there. You know, I even forced some dielectric grease up inside there thinking that would help, and I didn't know that that's what was going on, and so I figured it out. Now I'm not having hesitation. When I push that down, no hesitation left over. And I did a couple other things, but this is really definitely the culprit right here. So definitely pay attention to that. Make sure that you got that cap off there. This cap, make sure you got that off there when you're pushing those wires up in there, and check for that. Make sure you don't have that problem to happen. All right, there you go. There's one of the solutions that I found. I've been all up and down on this motor trying to figure this thing out. I mean, I've rebuilt the dang carburetor, you know, losing my mind on this. Now all I got left to do is, you know, plug back in my EGR, figure out which ports they go to, because getting my head wrapped around that, ooh, I like the thunder. Getting my head wrapped around that problem right there threw me off enough where I just left that stuff unplugged trying to diagnose this thing. So there's a possible solution to your hesitation. Keep that in mind, that, you know, it could be other things down the line. You know, there's possibility of a bad ground and whatnot. In any case, that's pretty much it. So good luck. Hopefully you don't have that problem like I did. I've had for a year now.